Hello, it's Emma here from Women's Health and Hormones. Today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about uterine fibroids and some methods that we can use to help to shrink uterine fibroids naturally. Uterine fibroids are one of women's greatest health challenges. They're the most common benign tumour, which means a non-cancerous tumour in women, and especially prevalent for women who are over 40. Women who are over 40 are around 4 times more likely to develop uterine fibroids, and the fibroids are statistically likely to be twice the size and twice in number as compared to women in other age groups. So it's a real health issue for women, especially for women in their 40s and then leading into that perimenopausal phase. For most women after menopause, for women who've been impacted by fibroids in their 40s and 50s, after menopause, fibroids hopefully should naturally start to shrink in size anyway without you needing to do a single thing. So the first thing to consider is whether there's any need for you to use natural medication or pharmaceutical medication to shrink fibroids anyway. Around 25 to 50% of women who have fibroids have asymptomatic fibroids. And the only reason that they're identified is because women are undergoing procedures for other reasons and they suddenly discover that there are fibroids present. But for 25 to 50% of women, those fibroids are asymptomatic, they don't cause any problems at all. However, for the other 50 to 75% of women, the majority of women who have fibroids, they do cause significant symptoms. One of the main concerns for women with fibroids is whether it's impacting pregnancy and fertility. And I guess this is more of a concern for women in their 20s, 30s, and maybe early 40s, rather than later into the 40s. Because fibroids can still present in those earlier ages, they're just not as severe, I guess. As I said before, they're less common, they're smaller, and they're less frequent in number. So the number of fibroids is reduced. However, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen for younger women. And the main concern there is whether it's impacting pregnancy and fertility. As women get older, the major symptoms that are concerning in terms of fibroids are definitely associated with bleeding. We know that women who have uterine fibroids have increased menstrual bleeding, also increased pain during the period, and that pain can be quite diverse. It can be just normal spasmodic cramping, but it can also be a very heavy, dragging, aching pain that extends not only in the abdomen but also through the lower back and down into the legs as well. So it can be quite significant. And a lot of women with fibroids also have breakthrough bleeding, where they get bleeding at other times of their cycle, not only during their period. And that generally happens because blood is pooling around the site of the fibroid and it's causing that breakthrough bleeding. Sometimes that breakthrough bleeding can also be linked to hormonal imbalances, which are really common for women who have uterine fibroids. And we now know that an imbalance in the hormones is actually primarily what's driving the development of the fibroids in the first place. So if you've been diagnosed with uterine fibroids and you're getting those symptoms of heavy bleeding and anemia that may be going with that, breakthrough bleeding, pain, discomfort, irregular cycle being caused by the breakthrough bleeding, if these symptoms are concerning you, then it's really important that you do something about it. And the extent to which it can affect your quality of life is huge, massive. So, it's really important to do whatever we can naturally to help to relieve the symptoms, and if it's appropriate, put steps in place to shrink fibroids. If your fibroids are asymptomatic, so you're not getting symptoms associated with them, it's important to continue to monitor them nonetheless and make sure that they're growing in size and you're not getting an increased number in fibroids. And I think in that case, it's also really important to look at changes that you can make with your lifestyle and your diet to prevent it from getting any worse. We know there are certain dietary and lifestyle changes that can have a really positive flow-on effect in preventing fibroids. So that would be a good course of action if you have asymptomatic fibroids. But if you're getting symptoms that are affecting your quality of life, you need to be more proactive with natural treatment. The first step in managing fibroids and hopefully moving towards shrinking the size of the fibroid, if that's appropriate, is to go and get your hormones tested. So hormone testing is really relevant. We know that fibroids grow and develop in a state of estrogen dominance in the body when there's too much estrogen circulating through the system. But it's not only too much estrogen, it's also sometimes caused by an imbalance between progesterone and estrogen. You see, progesterone is this wonderful hormone that helps to offset some of the negative proliferative effects of estrogen. And it's the proliferative effects of estrogen that causes increase in size in the fibroid and also an increase in thickening of the lining of the endometrium, which then continues to exacerbate the heavy bleeding. So you want to find out through hormone testing whether the problem is just that you have high levels of circulating estrogen, and we need to put steps into place using nutrition, herbal medicine, lifestyle to help to lower your estrogen levels, or whether the problem's actually not that your estrogen levels are too high, it's just that they're too high in comparison to progesterone. You may have low progesterone that's actually causing this imbalance between the hormones. So it's not only important how much of these hormones your body's producing, but what the ratio or balance is between them. And you can find that out through hormone testing. Now, I love saliva hormone testing. That's my preferred method of testing hormones. Saliva hormone testing is very sensitive and it picks up imbalances that sometimes get missed through blood work. And also, interestingly enough, your body produces 3 different types of estrogen, E1, E2, and E3. And with blood testing, E2 is the only one of those hormones that are measured. So you miss the opportunity to gather information about what's happening with the other types of estrogen, E1 and E3. So I really recommend hormone testing so that you can gather information about your hormonal blueprint, and then you can be more specific in the types of herbs and nutrients that you take to restore balance to your body, which in turn will help you manage the symptoms that the fibroids are causing, and also over a longer duration of time, hopefully shrink the fibroids as well. In the case of fibroids, I think while we're talking about testing, it's also important to get an idea of what's happening with some key nutrients. Optimizing nutrient status is hugely important for women who have fibroids, and there's a few specific nutrients that are indicated in the development of fibroids. So, and some of these nutrients you can measure. Definitely getting iodine studies done. Look at the iodine test is really invaluable. That's a urine test that can be done. And I'd also recommend that you get your vitamin D, B12, and folate levels tested as well. For women who are having symptomatic fibroids, in which case it's causing heavy bleeding, one of the main problems associated with that is anemia. You definitely want to check your iron studies, get your iron studies done so that you can find out whether you're anemic and whether an important part of treatment for you is actually correcting your iron levels. And interestingly enough, our bodies are weird in this way. The more iron deficient you are, the heavier your period is going to be. You'd think it would be the opposite, wouldn't you? You think if you were really iron deficient, your body would lose less iron during the period to help to rebuild your iron stores, but it's the opposite way. So the more iron deficient you are, the heavier your period is going to be, which means if that's the case in your situation, as you start to address the anemia, your period will naturally start to get a little bit lighter, which is great for women who have symptomatic fibroids. So once you've found out your hormonal blueprint, and once you've done some nutrient testing and you've found out what's going on with your body's nutrient stores, then it's time to start to implement some very specific herbal medication and nutritional supplements to restore balance to your body, restore balance to your hormones, minimize some of the symptoms that are associated with fibroids that are causing a lot of discomfort in your life, and restore the nutrient levels so that you see long-term improvements. And this is why I love the testing, because the testing gives us individualized information about what's going on in your body, not necessarily the next woman who has fibroids, but your body. The more we know about what's going on in your body, the more tailored and individualized your treatment can be, and that's how you're going to get results. There are some fantastic herbs that are astringents, what we call styptic herbs, that help to reduce blood flow, fantastic for reducing the heavy bleeding. There's other herbs and nutrients that are wonderful for reducing the inflammation and pain that's associated with fibroids. so that you can really minimise your use of pharmaceutical medication to relieve the pain. That's a great outcome. And of course, we need to use specific herbs and nutrients to balance your hormonal profile, assisting your body to process estrogen more effectively, which helps to lower estrogen levels, and also support ovulation and progesterone production. Because progesterone primarily is produced through the corpus luteum, which is what's left over of the follicle after the egg's been released. So you want to support ovulation in order to help your body produce enough progesterone to counteract some of those negative proliferative effects of the estrogen. So balancing your hormones is key here in helping your body naturally shrink fibroids. Once you're on a treatment plan and you're starting to get some improvements, I think it's also really well advised to have a close look at the extent to which you can identify and address any other underlying root causes in your lifestyle that may have also led to the development of the fibroids. And when we're looking at lifestyle, it's really important to reduce your exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals. These are chemicals from the environment that disturb your body's natural hormonal regulation and are a real factor for women who are suffering from symptoms associated with estrogen dominance, which is basically what fibroids are. They're these benign tumours that grow under a state of estrogen dominance in the body. So anything you can do in your lifestyle to minimise estrogen dominance is going to be really, really valuable. Endocrine disrupting chemicals are primarily found in our food chain, but also chemicals we're exposed to just in our daily life. So doing everything that you can to choose certified organic foods helps. So you're minimising your intake or consumption of herbicides and pesticides, which we know are endocrine disrupting chemicals. And then just choosing natural products wherever you're able to. So swapping your cleaning products over to natural products, swapping your personal care products over to natural products like shampoo, hair conditioner, makeup, these types of things is of huge value. And avoiding chemicals in the home wherever you can. There was a really interesting study looking at endocrine disrupting chemicals, and the only change that was made in the study was getting people to take their shoes off before they entered their home. And just because these endocrine disrupting chemicals from our environment actually settle on surfaces. They're not floating through the air, they're settling on surfaces. So we're picking a lot of them up on our shoes as we're walking around our neighbourhood during the day and in our offices and schools. So this research looked at the effect of just that one simple change of taking the shoes off before you enter the house. And the blood work they did on the families who were participating in the study, there was a significant reduction in these endocrine disrupting chemicals in their bloodstream just by making that one simple change. So the key here is do what you can. We can't completely avoid these chemicals, but there's a lot that we can do to help our bodies cope with the effects. It's also really important to have a look at what's going on with your stress levels. We know that for women who are under stress, symptoms of fibroids tend to grow more rapidly. And that's due to the effect of pro-inflammatory stress hormones in your system, but also the influence of the stress hormones on your body's ability to produce progesterone and ovulation, supporting ovulation. So having a look at the stress levels and what you can do to help to lower your stress levels and develop more resilience to help you cope with the effects of stress in your life is really, really valuable. And also having a look at what's going on with your gut flora and your gut microbiota. So optimizing the gut microbiota is of great value for women who are estrogen dominant because it helps the body eliminate estrogen metabolites more efficiently from the system rather than absorbing the products of hormonal detoxification from the bowel back into the bloodstream. And then we want to go through and support the detoxification pathways through the liver that also help our bodies deal with the effects of estrogen on the system. So the P2 detoxification pathway is really important here. Genetics can play a role as well. So women who have fibroids tend to have a family history of fibroids, but this wonderful new field of research called epigenetics, which is really looking at the influence of dietary and lifestyle factors on our genetic makeup. And we now know that just because you're born with a certain set of genes, it doesn't mean it's necessarily your destiny to walk down that pathway. How powerful is that? There's so much that can be done with diet, lifestyle, nutrition, environment to help to improve the way your body's switching on and switching off genes. And this is really applicable for women who have uterine fibroids. I hope this information has been useful for you. If you'd like to find out more about your hormones and how we can address hormonal imbalances naturally to help to shrink fibroids, to shrink your own fibroids, you might be interested in taking a look at my book, The Hormone Breakthrough. If you're interested in checking out the book, the link to access a digital download of the book is www.balanceformones.com.au/book. So you can check the book out at that site. I look forward to speaking to you again next time. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.